Listen up.
You're living a lie! Yeah, take it down! You're living a
Alright guys, today's video is an absolutely massive one, even though it may not seem like it on the surface. The reason being is we are taking some time here to highlight something that the Vice President of Engineering over at Epic Games had to say about the PlayStation 5's hardware, and how apparently Epic Games is so impressed with the PlayStation 5's hardware, it's so impactful, that they actually went back and rewrote code for Unreal Engine 5. Now, I really need you to let that sink in for a moment here. Not only are we not hearing anything like this being said at all about the competition, putting that completely aside here, you need to understand how significant that is. Now, some people may think I'm being a little bit hyperbolic or fanboyish when I say that the PS5 has the potential to be the most impactful console in history. They might think that I'm being that, but honestly, the reason why I'm saying that is because of what I'm hearing from developers. We have spent a lot of time on this channel highlighting different things that many developers have said about the next-gen consoles in general. There have been many developers who said very positive things about the PlayStation 5 and its SSD and its I/O throughput, but the general sentiment across basically, I'd say, almost all developers and publishers is they seem to be very excited about what they're going to be able to achieve with these SSDs and the I/O throughput and the bandwidth. It seems like that's going to have the biggest impact on overall game development going forward into next generation. And so I need you to understand that we have Epic Games, who has pretty much nothing to gain by trying to prop up the PS5. We also know that Sony did not go out of their way to pay Epic to say this about the PS5, nor did they go out of their way to pay them to basically promote the PS5. It's very clear, in my opinion, when you hear the way Tim Sweeney and his colleagues talked about the PS5, that they are just genuinely excited about this hardware and what they're capable of achieving on it. But we have even more proof of that here. I'm saying this because, believe it or not, this is what a lot of people believe. They think that developers are not genuinely, at least big developers, right? Big developers who have really nothing to gain by doing this, like Epic Games, there's no way they could just genuinely enjoy the PS5's hardware this much. They're being paid to say this. Anyway, I know I'm going on a rant and the video has barely even started, but let's go over the information here. And if you could do me a favor, make sure you hit the like button to help the video out. Hit the subscribe button as well, so you don't miss any future content. But it says the PS5 loads so fast that Epic Games rewrote parts of Unreal Engine 5 to make the most of it. The first public footage of Unreal Engine 5 in action was running on PS5 hardware. The Lumen in the Land of Nanite demo showed a lone explorer in some exquisitely rendered ruins. This wasn't just a convenient opportunity for cross-promotion, as Epic Games Vice President of Engineering explained in an interview with VG247, the possibilities presented by PS5 had made Epic push the engine even further than it originally intended. And the individual's name, the actual vice president, his name is Nick Penwarden, and this is exactly what he had to say. The PlayStation 5 provides a huge leap in both computing and graphics performance, but its storage architecture is also truly special. The ability to stream in content at extreme speeds enables developers to create denser and more detailed environments, changing how we think about streaming content. It's so impactful that we have rewritten our core I/O subsystems for Unreal Engine with the PlayStation 5 in mind. Now again, I need to let you take a moment to let this sink in. This is not a first-party studio or a first-party developer underneath Sony saying this. This is a third-party developer who's making a third-party engine, an engine that can be used by any platform, any developer, right, any studio. It's them saying this. And so you have to understand what this means. What this means is that everything that we have been thinking about the PlayStation 5, a lot of the stuff we've been talking about here on the channel, it seems it's all true. When we think about, the idea that these specifications that are on paper maybe don't really actually mean so much. Maybe it's more about what developers are really going to be able to achieve, right? Like the final product, the end result. Not only is that what pretty much everybody's going to care about at the end of the day, but it just goes to show that developers, they're not about the power. Developers are about what is going to enable them to do things and achieve things that they've never been able to do before. And it sounds like the PlayStation 5 is going to do exactly that. Now, I'm not saying that this means that the next generation Xbox won't be able to achieve some same things, because of course it will. But you've also seen a lot of people go out of their way to downplay the SSD inside of the PlayStation 5 and the I/O throughput, right? And there's a lot of people who have claimed boldly that the only thing you're going to see are better load times. When we have developers like this, not just smaller developers, but big developers, again, I feel like a broken record saying this, but we have all of these developers saying this, and they're all saying the same thing. And that is, this thing is a big deal. What Sony has done here is a big deal, and you have the vice president of engineering over at Epic Games saying it's so impactful. They went back to rewrite code for their engine that is going to be used by many, many developers. Probably one of the most widely used game engines in the world. I need you to think about that. And so anytime you see somebody trying to downplay what Sony is doing here, don't even pay attention to it. And that's the last thing I want to say in this video before ending it is, don't pay attention to what random people who are not developers have to say about what these next generation consoles will and won't be capable of, okay? We need to stop doing that, and we need to actually start paying attention to what actual developers are saying about these consoles. The ones who are actually making games on it that me and you are going to be playing in the future. Those are the people we need to listen to, and if you listen to them, you'll find that not only are both of these consoles extremely exciting and are going to be awesome, has opted to do with this SSD technology is the right move, and it's going to be very impactful for game development long term. And it's so impactful apparently that Epic Games decided to go back and rewrite code for Unreal Engine 5 for the PlayStation 5. Not because they were paid to, not because they were told to, but because they wanted to. Again, let that sink in. So you think you're going to hear any of these people out here who are trying to convince you that the SSD won't be that big of a game changer, it's not going to be that much of a difference? You think you're going to hear any of them highlighting this? No, they're not going to. So that's why I'm highlighting it. So at this point, I'm going to ask you guys, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I will be very who are trying to convince you that the SSD won't be that big of a game changer, it's not going to be that much of a difference. You think you're going to hear any of them highlighting this? No, they're not going to. So that's why I'm highlighting it. So at this point, I'm going to ask you guys, let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I will be very interested to see what you guys have to say. Leave the video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe.
Hello, I'm Brian Karras, Technical Director of Graphics here at Epic Games.
Hi, I'm Jérôme Plateau, Art Director of the Special Project.
A few years ago, we got together as a team and brainstormed where we thought we could push forward state-of-the-art in real-time graphics. There were two key areas that stood out. The first, dynamic global illumination. Beautiful bounce lighting instantaneously.
I don't have to be constrained to do a game where the world has to be static, and I'm able to iterate a lot faster.
and we call this new system Lumen. We're about to show you what it is capable of. But first, there was another area that we thought we could push forward, truly virtualized geometry. The artist wouldn't have to be concerned over poly counts, draw calls, or memory. You could directly use film quality assets and bring them straight into the engine.
And that's a big deal for artists. I just want to be able to import my ZBrush model, my photogrammetry scan, my CAD data without wasting any time optimizing, creating LODs, or even lowering the quality to make it hit frame rate.
In the end, that's what it's all about. Art that just works. And we call this new technology Nanite. Here is the future of Unreal Engine running live on a PlayStation 5.
Yo, this shit looks
Awesome.
crazy.
Let's take a look at it.
This has to be the right way.
Yo, this shit looks crazy as fuck, yo. This shit looks so crazy. Clean my screen off, yo. So I can see this shit better.
There was another area that we thought we could push forward, truly virtualized geometry. The artist wouldn't have to be concerned over poly counts, draw calls, or memory.
Yo, they got the
Directly
Lumen.
use film quality assets and bring them straight in.
You're going to use Lumen, SSDs, and ray tracing. Yo, the next consoles is going to be fucking crazy. I know they're going to charge like $700 for that shit, though. Day one on the market, which is going to be like $600-700. I got to look at the new Xbox. They got that shit built like a PC modem. Like a tower. That shit don't even look like a console no more. But when this current generation consoles came out, I got both of them. I got the PlayStation 4 day one, and I had the Xbox One on release date. Pre-ordered them and picked them up on release dates. And with these next gen consoles, honestly, I might not get the Xbox, yo. Like, I don't know. I gotta look into Xbox. I might watch some footage. I didn't even really watch the whole E3. Did they even have an E3? Wait a minute. E3 is this month. E3 is normally in June, right? But I ain't watched none of the earlier conferences this year. I know motherfuckers been talking about it, but I only seen one picture of the new Xbox. But I'm definitely gonna get the PS5. Definitely gotta get that shit. But depending on what Xbox has to offer, I might get both of them. At the same time though, man. Like, I barely played the Xbox One to the point where I just sold that shit like a couple years after I had it because never played that shit. It just sat there. Right? For one, I do more gaming on PlayStation, so my friends list is mostly on PlayStation. I barely have any friends on Xbox. And for two, like, Xbox doesn't have like really good exclusives. Naughty Dog is PlayStation exclusive, yo. Some of the Street Fighter games are PlayStation exclusive. I mean, you got big titles that are only on the PlayStation. And then PlayStation jumped out there with the VR headset. Microsoft ain't never put a VR out for their job. So, depending on what they say they got to offer with the next console, I might not even fuck with that shit at all. But Epic Games is showing their Unreal Engine 5, where they rewrote some of the code because of the capacity of the PlayStation 5. I don't know what the name of this game is, but this shit looks fucking crazy.
To the engine.
And that's a big deal for us. I just want to be able to import my ZBrush model, my photogrammetry scan, my CAD data, without wasting any time optimizing, creating LODs, or even lowering the quality to make it hit frame rate.
In the end, that's what it's all about. Art that just works. And we call this new technology Nanite. Here is the future of Unreal Engine running live on a PlayStation 5.
Awesome, let's take a look at it.
Yo, if this is what the PS5 gonna look like,
This has to be the right way.
Before we continue, let's stop a moment and take a look at some of the key features of this demo. Much of what you see was built with Quixel Megascan assets, but instead of using the game versions, we used the cinematic versions, which would typically only be used in film. There are around 1 million triangles each, and thanks to virtual texturing, they all use 8K textures as well. Nanite can render an insane number of triangles very quickly. There are over 1 billion triangles of source geometry in each frame that Nanite crunches
Can't
down
even see it with the
to
glare,
around
but, yo,
20
this shit looks
million
crazy.
non-triangles. What does that many triangles look like? This isn't noise. These are the triangles, each a different color. Most are so small that they look like noise. Nanite achieves detail down to the pixel, which means triangles are often the size of pixels. This amount of geometric detail requires shadows to be pixel accurate as well, and Nanite can do that too.
what
Speaking
the
of lighting,
fuck?
all of the lighting in this demo is completely dynamic, with the power of Lumen that even includes multi-bounce global illumination. No light maps, no baking here. Without GI, all of that beautiful lighting is gone. With Lumen enabled, we can move the light and the bounce changes instantly. Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah.
We've made some great additions to our audio system as well. Convolution reverb allows us to measure reverberation characteristics of real spaces, like actual caves that we sampled, and reproduce them in virtual spaces. Sound field rendering allows us to record and playback spatialized audio. All of this adds up to a more immersive experience.
And this is what the futurists keep talking about, saying that one day, and not far from now, yo, maybe in my lifetime, I hope in my lifetime, that we will have, we will be able to simulate reality so realistically through augmentation or virtual reality that it will be indistinguishable from life. Like some Total Recall type shit. Like you won't be able to tell the difference between the real world and the game world. And if the PS5 can do this right now, and then if they have the capabilities of putting a VR port where you can actually feel like you're walking through this world, that shit is crazy because this shit looks hella real, yo.
This swarm of bats was created with our Niagara effects system. Particles in Niagara can now talk to one another and understand their environment like never before.
Yeah,
We've also added a ton of new functionality to run fluid simulations like you see in the water below. The demo runs on our Chaos Physics system. Here we are using it to accurately simulate the rigid bodies of the falling rocks and the cloth of her scarf.
Looks like some Laura Croft type shit.
Now that the environment is so complex, we've needed to greatly improve our animation systems to adapt. We've added predictive foot placement and motion warping, which dynamically modifies IK and body position to look more natural. For the character to more realistically interact with the environment, we've added the ability to trigger seamless contextual animation events, like her hand on the door.
That's promising.
Yo.
Dynamic GI is amazing, not just for speeding up iteration, but also for its impact on gameplay.
Nice.
Any light source can move while still having beautiful bounce lighting. Dynamic illumination means specular as well, which you can see on all the metal surfaces. You can even see the Niagara-powered bugs reacting to the light. Lumen not only reacts to moving light sources, but also changes in geometry. Remember we mentioned high poly assets? This statue was imported directly from ZBrush and is more than 33 million triangles. No baking of normal maps, no authored LODs. And we can do more than a single statue. There are nearly 500 of that exact statue at the same detail level placed in this room, for a total of over 16 billion triangles from statues alone.
What the fuck?
Over this entire demo, there are hundreds of billions of triangles. So with Nanite, you have limitless geometry, and with Lumen, you have fully dynamic lighting and global illumination, all running on a PlayStation 5.
Yo, what the fuck?
There's not much time left.
And this doesn't need to be constrained to small rooms. It can stretch all the way to the horizon.
The portal is open. Don't fail me now.
What the fuck? I ain't gonna lie, I gotta share this on my Facebook.
It's time to see what's next.
Think you know FanDuel? Well, what if we told you that we've got an ace up our sleeve? Introducing FanDuel Casino. Now you can play casino games.
Yeah. Nobody don't gamble,
Blackjack,
motherfucker.
and
Why you
online
keep trying to get me to gamble all the time, bitch? Gamble is an addiction.
Hey, what's up guys, my name is The Cherno. Today we're going to be taking a look at Unreal Engine 5's new amazing demo. So yeah.
Wow, I really want to hear what you have to say, but your voice is so nasally and just a little bit too high pitched for me, dude. It's like, And this shit is 30 minutes long. Can I listen to this dude for 30 minutes? Yeah, Steam games.
Yesterday, I woke up to like a lot of messages on every platform telling me to check out this amazing new demo that Unreal Engine has released, and I thought that it would be fun to give you guys my thoughts
Yo,
on
that pollen is fucking with me
this.
so bad.
And I have actually seen it once before, so this isn't going to be like a completely new like reaction video or anything like that. It's more going to be my kind of thoughts on this video. But the time that I did see this was quite brief, so this is going to be a little bit more of me taking my time, enjoying the video, and just letting you know what my thoughts are. I'm actually really excited to look at this more closely. Now, for those of you who don't know who I am, I like to make game engines. I worked as a software engineer at EA on various game engines. First, I worked on EA's primary mobile game engine called Osiris, and then later Frostbite. In fact, see, I have the Frostbite pen. This is all I have now. And then I quit all of that because I wanted to work on my own game engine called Hazel, as well as make YouTube videos for you guys. So that is what I am focusing. Dynamically, that data is useless, meaning that like maybe if we have like a cave and then a rock kind of moves off and reveals all this kind of light entering the cave now, and that has to all bounce around the cave and give it kind of that ambient lighting, we can't really do that. That has to be dynamic, and that's what they're talking about here.
Beautiful bounce lighting instantaneously.
I don't have to be constrained to do a game where the world has to be static. And I mean,
Okay.
it's a lot faster.
So you're looking at the video that
Yeah,
I
that's
just looked at.
important as well. It's not even about like making stuff dynamic. Even for a static world, if you're able to kind of change the lighting as you're working on that world and see it kind of, you know, change instantly, that also is kind of quicker iteration times. It makes the development of the game a lot faster because you don't have to wait hours for your computer to figure out where on earth the light bounces are going.
Call this new system Lumen. We're
Okay,
about to
Lumen.
show you what it is capable of. But first, there was another area that we thought we could push forward. Truly virtualized geometry. The artist wouldn't have to be concerned over poly counts, draw calls, or memory. Could directly use film quality assets and bring them straight into the engine.
And that's a big deal for artists. I just want to be able to import my ZBrush model, my photogrammetry scan, my CAD data, without wasting any time optimizing, creating LODs, or even lowering the quality.
Over the edge, feel like I'm floating through the air. The pain I felt is painful, all is said and done. Oh.
Man, don't nobody even know what the fuck this shit gonna look like. Anything. No, this shit is from 2 months ago. This right here is from IGN. They're pretty much official, I guess.
Sony finally gave us a detailed peek inside the PlayStation 5. This morning, PlayStation's Mark Cerny opened the lid on the PS5 and gave a detailed breakdown of the internal specs. Here's a quick rundown. The CPU will be powered by 8 Zen 2 cores running at 3.5 GHz. The GPU will be able to hit 10.28 teraflops with 36 CUs at 2.23 GHz. The GPU's architecture will be based on AMD's RDNA 2. The PS5 will pack 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory with a bandwidth of 448 gigabytes per second. For storage, there's an 825 gigabyte SSD, which is expandable. More on that in a bit. And the PlayStation 5 will support external hard drives. For you audiophiles, the PS5's audio will be powered by the Tempest engine, which will be a significant step up from the audio in the PS4. And for those still buying physical copies of games, the optical drive is a 4K UHD Blu-ray drive. You got all that? If any of that sounds familiar, well, take a look at the recently announced Xbox Series X specs. CPU packing 8 Zen 2 cores, a GPU powered by AMD's RDNA architecture, and 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory. But there are key differences. The Series X's I/O throughput is sitting at 2.4 gigabytes per second raw or 4.8 gigabytes per second compressed. The PS5, however, can hit an I/O throughput of 5.5 gigabytes per second raw and around 8 to 9 gigabytes per second compressed. Basically, the PS5 can move a lot more data per second than the Xbox Series X, and that can lead to better performance in games. Let's go back to the expandable storage. Yes, the Xbox Series X comes with a 1TB SSD, but to expand it, you'll need to buy a proprietary SSD card. Yes, it supports a regular old spinning hard drive, but only for last-gen games. The PS5, however, will accept third-party NVMe SSDs that'll fit into a bay in the console. In today's stream, Mark Cerny also confirmed support for faster SSDs that'll be out by the end of the year. But as Digital Foundry suggests, they're likely to be on the expensive side. Still, this is welcome news as consumers won't need to rely on expensive proprietary drives from Sony and can go for cheaper options. But beware, those drives still need to be certified by Sony, so don't just go buying any SSD. So there you have it. A look at the guts of the Sony PlayStation 5, which will be going toe-to-toe with Microsoft's Xbox Series X this holiday, presumably if we survive this coronavirus pandemic. We'll have a full coverage of the PS5 news today, so head over to IGN.com for more. Stay safe, wash your hands, buy a reasonable amount of toilet paper, and we'll see you on the next IGN Now.
How does this shit have a PlayStation 5 controller for $200 for sale already?
Well, Microsoft has finally done it. They have shown us exactly what's going to be in the new Xbox Series X. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanks, Xbox Series X, the full specs revealed. So, yes, we're here at D-Day, or X-Day, or whatever you want to call it. This has obviously been the subject of a lot of speculation for quite a while now. And in truth, I'm pretty excited. Obviously, Microsoft is touting this thing as the most powerful Xbox ever, and why wouldn't they? It doesn't really make sense that your newest would not be the most powerful ever, but they have every right to because, well, it is. So without any further ado, let's talk a little bit about it. Now, obviously, the two most important things we need to talk about are the CPU and the GPU, and I think we're dealing with some good stuff here. Now, Xbox Series X is what they're calling the biggest generational leap of system-on-a-chip and API design that Microsoft has be a beacon of technological innovation leadership for this console generation and will propagate the innovation throughout the DirectX ecosystem this year and into next year. Now, specifically, the CPU is built on top of the Zen 2 CPU. The one in the Xbox Series X is specifically an 8-core running at 3.8 gigahertz, 3.6 gigahertz with SMT. To give a little background on that, Zen 2 is a microarchitecture that follows up the AMD Zen and Zen Plus microarchitectures. It's a good architecture. It can actually deliver higher performance at a lower power consumption than the Intel equivalent and has a pretty wide range of different products. You can get a Zen 2 CPU from under $200 all the way up to like $4,000. They're all generally high quality, and it's definitely a good pick for something more stationary like a console, on account it's flexible and well known by a lot of developers. Now, the GPU, on the other hand, is actually pretty damn cutting edge. It's at 12 teraflops, 52 CEU custom RDNA 2 GPU from AMD. And what's neat about that is this is stuff that we're not even actually seeing on the consumer market anywhere yet. It will be cutting edge when both the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5 come out, both with RDNA 2 GPUs. So in all honesty, it's actually a really exciting console generation. On account, we're talking about graphics cards that deliver A, 50% better performance, or at least theoretically so, and B, ray tracing out of the box. Just to go ahead and say this, as far as light simulation goes, to have ray tracing pretty much basically capable in every single game starting this console generation on, just by default, just a thing you can call on in the hardware of the computer, that's great. Because as wonderful as lighting can be in gaming, a true light simulation requires ray tracing. Light is rays, and ray tracing is a means to reproduce how rays would work. And knowing that this is basically the standard we're coming from going in, I'm extremely excited to see where we go as far as this console generation's graphics. Also understanding that console development often kind of places some limits on PC game development, it's quite nice to understand that in the coming years, those limits may not be as hindering. Now, some of the demos we saw for ray tracing included Gears of War, Minecraft, and these are significant changes in what it looks like. This isn't to say that Minecraft is a game you desperately need ray tracing for, but it's still very cool to see what it looks like that way. But it's Gears of War 5 where some really interesting things are seen. The lighting is just significantly better. It's not even close. Surfaces act so much more how you would expect them to act. That's great. That's exactly what we want to see. Now, we have some alleged specifications for the PlayStation 5, and if they're correct, the PS5 is not quite as powerful as the Xbox Series X. Now, it's kind of important we understand that these are not confirmed specs, they are consensus based on information, but the belief is that the GPU in the PS5 is going to be running at 11.6 teraflops, which is not a lot less than the Xbox Series X. We're kind of talking about an area where it's 0.4 teraflops of difference, so it may not actually really be that much of a difference. But there's a supposed other leak that says it is running at 13.3 teraflops in its GPU. So keep in mind there is conflicting information out there. It may be more powerful, it may be less powerful. But even if it's at the higher estimate, that's 13.3 teraflops. It's not a huge difference. However, graphics aren't the only thing that's vastly improved on this version of the Xbox, of course. It's definitely cool to talk about, but one of the bigger improvements, I think, was in load time. Now, they showed off a tech demo of State of Decay 2 loading 40 seconds faster on the Xbox Series X. And I know that 40 seconds doesn't sound like a lot, but if you sit here and watch the tech demo, where you can see the other player walking around doing things while the Xbox One X player is not, they're just looking at a load screen, it seems like a massive improvement because let's just be frank, it seems like forever watching these two load screens next to each other. It's obviously very relative because 40 seconds in the scope of a full day isn't a long time. However, it's a big improvement. This comes to us partly because they've moved over to an SSD, specifically a 1TB custom NVMe SSD, but also because of a couple of elements of its architecture. For instance, having nice, very speedy memory, 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 with a 320 byte bus. 10 gigabytes of that memory has a speed of 560 gigabytes a second, 6 gigabytes, 330 gigabytes a second, and it has I/O throughput, which is how fast it can transmit data through the console, at 2.4 gigabytes a second, raw, 4.8 gigabytes a second compressed, with a custom hardware decompression block. Now, a lot of that doesn't mean a whole lot to every single person out there, and that's perfectly understandable, but the best way to sum it up is they've built a machine that will absolutely run very quickly. It will not seem sluggish. Load times are going to be nice and fast, as demonstrated, and in truth, it's pretty exciting. Now, 1 terabyte sounds like a lot of storage, but if you remember back to the PS3, the 60 gigabyte model seemed, wow, that's a lot. And even during the course of that generation, PS3 models of up to 500 gigabytes were eventually made. Storage moves quickly, it's easier to fill up than you would think, and requirements are constantly expanding. Although, we did cover that pretty neat AI texture technology a few weeks ago, and that could end up helping quite a bit. Still, we have both the capability of expanding the storage through a 1 terabyte expansion card, the expansion card being another 1 terabyte custom NVMe SSD, meaning it's not something that would slow your games down. As far as external storage goes, however, there's a USB 3.2 external HDD support. However, it's not just, hey, you can use a 3.2 hard drive however you want. It really has to do with the fact that you can use Xbox One accessories on the new console. You'll be able to use external USB hard drives to store and run Xbox One and Xbox backward compatibility titles. You will be able to store Xbox Series X games on these drives, but you won't be able to run them without transferring the game to the internal drive or one of the expansion slot drives. The expansion slot drives are at least a little bit flexible, despite being proprietary, in that you will apparently be able to swap them between systems, so you can copy a game to them and take it over to a friend's house, at least. And to some extent, I do get why they wouldn't be letting you use a regular hard drive. It is going to impact the amount of time spent loading if you were to load off of a hard drive. But on the other hand, it's not great to know that it's really inflexible and proprietary. Now, as far as the optical drive goes, I don't think anybody's really going to lose their mind over the fact there's a 4K UHD Blu-ray drive in it. It's certainly not a bad thing, but I would think it's pretty standard at this point to have something like that in one of these, especially while the United States internet infrastructure is not necessarily ready to give everybody 60 gigabyte downloads that don't take a full week. Or in the cases of a lot of rural areas, just a completely impossible thing. It's not going to happen. You're not going to download something that's even a gigabyte. Those places still rely very heavily on disk media. Yes, there are still gamers in the United States with 56K dial-up modems. It's real. What I would say is that for those people, it's very good that optical media is still being considered as an important thing. Although I would speculate there is another way that games could be delivered. In theory, if you had an expansion card, you could take that into the store and load a game onto it there. Does that seem like something that's super likely? I don't know. Again, I'm speculating. But the idea of an expansion card that you can remove and that performs exactly like the SSD does open up some possibilities for people who don't have the internet to download games in the way that I mentioned. We'll see if that's followed through on. We also got to see exactly how the thing is manufactured, which is pretty cool. They're using two main boards, and the Xbox Series X actually pulls in air through the bottom and pushes it out the top via a 130 millimeter fan. Honestly, in a lot of ways, it's like a computer, but it does have its own unique design cues. Now, as for the controller, there's not a lot different at first glance. However, there are some tech improvements. For instance, it now features a USB-C charging port, which nothing shouldn't at this point. Further, it has Bluetooth Low Energy support, so it should be easier to pair the controller with PC or Android or iOS devices. Beyond that, you'll be able to use the new controller with the Xbox One console. It will work with current Xbox One accessories like the chat pad, and although it is for the most part very similar, there are a few design cues you can tell the Elite controller has leaked into the regular controller bit here. I'm talking probably most specifically about the D-pad. Kind of combines the regular and the Elite D-pads, as well as has a technology called dynamic latency input, which what it does to reduce latency is to A, send more information to the game system, and B, sync that information with specific frames. It's also got a share button like the PS4 controller. I of course think that's a good idea. There's no reason not to have that on a controller nowadays. Overall, very minor improvements, but that USB-C, let me just go ahead and say I'm very happy they've moved to that standard. I am really looking forward to playing this thing. It's a very cool machine that under the hood is going to be a formidable competitor in this console generation. But what do you think? Are these specs enough? Do they wet your whistle? Are you satisfied? Leave us a comment, let us know. If you like this video, please click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is of course a subscription. So click subscribe and don't forget to enable all notifications. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon Hero. We'll see you next time right here on Game Ranks. So the PlayStation 5 specs have been announced. We now know what we're dealing with as far as Sony's new console. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on Game Ranks, the PlayStation 5 full specs revealed. So this morning, Sony did a talk called The Road to PS5, which was originally planned for GDC, and let's just go ahead and say it really showed. This was an immensely technical talk. It was clearly aimed at game developers. However, it was actually incredibly informative. We were able to glean a lot of context from it. And in truth, the path they've decided to take with this thing is very interesting, and if they deliver on all of the numbers that they say, there's a real possibility that in some respects they do outperform what is technically a more powerful system in the Xbox Series X. It is extremely important to remember that they're telling us what they want us to think about this system. Yes, it was aimed at developers, so it's a little bit less markety, but that being said, this is of course obviously still in its own way an advertisement for the PlayStation 5. I am going to be bringing up the specs that the Xbox Series X has as we talk about the PlayStation 5. It's basically unavoidable to compare these things at this point, but there's some discussion that goes along with the disparities in some of these numbers that I think is actually really interesting. So starting off with our CPU, the PlayStation 5 has 8 Zen 2 cores running at 3.5 gigahertz apiece. However, these are running at something they're calling variable frequency. What that is they keep the power consumption the same all the time and adjust the frequency that the cores are running at rather than the power consumption. This allows them to have a consistent cooling solution. It also allows apparently for gains in efficiency that will result in better performance, which is important because Xbox Series X is running a similar situation except without that variable frequency. Xbox Series X is 8 Zen 2 cores at 3.8 gigahertz a second, so it's a little bit higher, but time will really tell, I think, the difference between these two types of technology, how they handle. It may end up being that the PlayStation 5 outperforms, it may not. Now, the GPU employs a similar variable frequency situation and comes in a little short of the Xbox Series X's 12 teraflops, as well as number of CUs, with the PlayStation 5 number of CUs coming in at 36, while the Xbox Series X at 52. However, Sony is claiming that their CUs have about 62% more transistors, so it's a rough equivalent to about 56 PS4 compute units. So keep in mind some of these numbers aren't one-to-one comparisons with the Xboxes. That being said, the GPU can apparently run at a very high frequency, 2.23 gigahertz, which is actually quite a bit higher than the 1.825 that we see from the GPU on the Xbox Series X. PlayStation 5, like the Xbox Series X, is running an RDNA 2 GPU architecture. That's great. That means ray tracing, that means reflections, that means some pretty cool stuff. A likely very big increase in what we can expect from the graphics. which of course is ultimately what makes another console generation appealing, right? Memory is 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 with a consistent memory bandwidth across the board at 448 gigabytes a second. That contrasts with the Xbox's split bandwidth, for lack of a better term. Some of the Xbox's memory is at 560 gigabytes per second. Some of the Xbox's memory is at 336 gigabytes per second. Having one universal speed may be better because in theory, you're really only as fast as your weakest link. So if data intermingles between the two speeds on the Xbox's memory bus, it's all going to end up being restricted by that 336 gigabytes per second speed. This is all in theory, but it may be that the 448 gigabyte speed across the board on the memory of the PlayStation 5 is actually an advantage. We shall see though. Now, we're at a definite disadvantage as far as hard drive space. The PlayStation 5 is running a custom 825 gigabyte SSD. It is a blisteringly fast drive running at 5.5 gigabytes per second with raw data that is uncompressed, and with the type of compression that both the PlayStation 5 and PlayStation 4 use, we're talking about actually 8 to 9 gigabytes of data. This is actually significantly faster than the data traveling speeds on the Xbox Series X. Xbox Series X is going to be seeing 2.4 gigabytes raw, 4.8 gigabytes compressed. We're talking 5.5 gigabytes raw, roughly 0.7 gigabytes per second faster than the compressed totals on the Xbox Series X. In Mark Cerny's talk, he wasn't even just talking about eliminating load screens, but having loading be so fast, you could have a very detailed world loading on the fly as you're traveling through it. This is something that actually does go on now, but while you're walking through a tunnel or a canyon, something winding, or taking an elevator ride, that kind of stuff would just be done with. You'd be loading the world as far as you could see while you're looking at it. For instance, Spider-Man in the PS4 game had capped speed because the game couldn't load the city fast enough. Don't get me wrong, it has an incredible sense of speed, but Spider-Man 2 on PS5 theoretically would allow for much faster, much more incredible sense of speed. The same thing would go for Grand Theft Auto 6 or any other open world game. In theory, the speed that you would be able to go at while quickly loading large areas of the map would be significantly increased. And the PlayStation 5 is also going to be using two types of compression. zlib, which is the one that PlayStation 4 also uses, and a new Kraken format that offers an additional 10% of compression. This is all going to be done through hardware, and effectively this could be kind of the boon for the PlayStation 5, given that it has a couple of specs that are actually on paper less than the Xbox Series X. If data is traveling at these rates, load times are going to be just absolutely unbelievably short, if not possibly non-existent, if developers play their cards right. The numbers Mark Cerny put forward during the course of his presentation are basically utopian. They're amazing. What they said they can accomplish on the PlayStation 5 as far as load speeds, I'm actually quite skeptical of because it sounds so good. And frankly, I'm not even sure if they have to pull off fully what they said here. If they give us 75% of it, if we're loading in, a couple seconds, it's still going to be better than the Xbox Series X's load times. Again, if the information we've been given today holds. It may be that they've come up with a smarter architecture to create an experience for a gamer that's just overall better, rather than gone with just blunt force. Until we see it running, obviously we can't say anything, but if I were to speculate as to the primary advantage of the PlayStation 5 versus the Xbox Series X, it's this. Now, like I said, we've got the 825 gigabyte SSD. That's smaller than the Xbox Series X's terabyte. They have a similar scheme cooked up as far as having a slot for expansion cards or expansion SSDs, I don't know. You'll be able to add another NVMe SSD, which matches the specs of the internal one. Sony will have specifications, so they said don't run out and buy one yet, just a heads up. You're going to need one of the faster M2 SSDs available. Also, external USB drives will be supported, however, these are technically slower drives, and they're only used to play PS4 games through backwards compatibility, not PS5 games. So like the Xbox Series X, you're going to need to use their custom SSD speeds to take advantage of the new generation, and other USB drives will be used simply for storage and of course for previous gen games that were built on lower speeds. Unlike Xbox Series X though, you don't have to buy Microsoft proprietary memory storage here. Like I said earlier, you'll be able to pick up a regular approved M2 SSD and add it in, which gives you a little bit more freedom. As far as the optical drive goes, we're looking at the exact same thing that the Xbox Series X has, a 4K UHD Blu-ray drive. Now, I think a very interesting thing that we have seen here is that Sony hasn't really put forward a performance target statistic where Microsoft has with the Xbox Series X. They target 4K at 60 frames per second, up to 120 frames per second. That being said, the extremely bold claims Sony has made about load times may just be the thing that actually makes the difference. Another thing, we got some in-depth talk about the backwards compatibility on the PlayStation 5. It's pretty darn good. We're fully compatible with PlayStation 4, and the belief is that almost all of the top 100 played PlayStation 4 titles will be playable on day one of PlayStation 5. That's of course a really welcome thing to hear. They said it will obviously be rolling out games as they are tested individually. That's exciting. I really like the idea that I don't need to have the PlayStation 4 plugged in to play all the PlayStation 4 games. Now, our very last aspect that we need to talk about is 3D audio. This is actually something Sony has decided is one of their more massive priorities for this generation, and the philosophy underlying with it, I actually agree with a lot. They wanted to create a type of audio that basically tricks your brain into feeling like the sounds are happening around you. Audio immersion can do a lot to make visual immersion seem more, well, real. To accomplish this, they've created something called the Tempest Engine, which is kind of another GPU that's acting as an SPU, sound processing unit, which is a big jump over the PlayStation 4 just using a single core to deliver 7.1 surround. The PS3 had a dedicated SPU, and this new unit, the Tempest Engine, is capable of giving different audio to different users. It uses a profile called an HRTF, which, to be clear, is different for every single person. They're using sort of averaged ones in order to ensure that you get something that works for you. They'll give you a choice between 5 different ones at the start, but it's actually going to be something that develops over the course of years. The intent is to deliver more locality to sound, so that sound is more easily identifiable as happening in a specific spatial area. According to Mark Cerny, there's going to be the ability to have literally hundreds of different sources for sound as far as locations, where traditionally on the PS4 there's kind of 2, with stereo, or, a few more if you've got surround. He kept saying he believes it's an incredibly impressive bit of technology and does a lot to fool the player into feeling like they're actually in the world they're observing on the television. I love the sound of that, no pun intended. And in truth, I think that we really have an interesting, completely different design philosophy with the PlayStation 5 that we do with the Xbox Series X. PlayStation 5 is looking to maximize the efficiency of components that are slightly less powerful overall than the Xbox Series X, but possibly able to be utilized better. Now, again, there's even things that I'm a little bit skeptical about right now, particularly that utopian load time claim. But in truth, seeing these two different design philosophies face off is going to make for a really interesting console generation. I'm really excited for both personally, but there's some gambles that the PlayStation 5 is making that I think are a little bit more interesting, and I really want to see how they play out. What do you think? Leave us a comment, let us know. If you like this video, please click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week, and the best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe, don't forget to enable all notifications, and as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon, you can follow me on Twitter, Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time, right here on GameRanks.
Hey folks, today is Friday, March 20th, 2020. As usual, my name is Jake Baldino, here to talk about the video game news that has been going on this week. And it's been a busy week for gaming news, but it's also been a pretty busy week for not gaming news. I'm doing the Friday show here alone. No bits, no goose, no guys here. It kind of feels like the old days when we first started the channel. But we're keeping everybody separate, not getting anyone sick from anything here, and not contributing to the statistics. It's kind of our goal here. It's kind of a goal for a lot of people out there if they can do it. Of course, I feel like anything we're going to do to prevent the spread of coronavirus, we're going to do it. So that's what we can do. We're going to keep giving you guys content, though, if you didn't see me post that on social media. Full speed ahead on regular videos. Just wanted to say, though, take care of yourselves out there, mentally, physically, your family, your friends, your relatives. Maybe listen to the experts on this one and just be careful out there, all right? But let's talk about the video game news, because there's a lot. There's so much. We finally got a bunch of good PlayStation 5 news after weeks and weeks of seemingly just talking about Xbox. But, of course, Xbox also gave us news this week. Let's break down the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X, because we got spec dumps from both of them this week. Just real quick, because a lot of it is just really complicated. I'm not going to blow smoke up your butts. I'm not an expert. But earlier in the week, we did get an info dump from Xbox themselves. Also, shout out to Austin Evans, who did some really good videos from it. He actually was able to kind of assemble the thing, and it's really interesting to see how the Series X is made. I love those guys. But anyway, here are the specs right here on screen for the Xbox Series X, some of which we've known already, but these are all the main things. 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 RAM, a 1 terabyte custom NVMe SSD, which is pretty sweet, 4K UHD Blu-ray drive. The target performance is 4K at 60 FPS. The GPU is a custom RDNA 2 with 12 teraflops, 52 compute units, and it's going to have expandable storage, proprietary storage, Xbox partnered storage of a 1 terabyte expansion.
Are you over 25, have a clean driving record, no DUIs? You can drop your auto insurance rate to as low as $19 a month.
Alright guys, today we have some very exciting PlayStation news to go over and talk about, as Sony has come out and given us a new date for the long-awaited PlayStation 5 reveal event. That date is going to be this Thursday, June 11th at 1 p.m. Pacific time, which is extremely exciting. But they also did update their blog here, and they have given us a little bit of new information. Obviously, this information is not pertaining to the games themselves, but it's talking about the quality of the stream itself and what we can expect, those of us who are planning on watching the stream live when it happens. And they're also apparently letting us know that they plan to show off some interesting, cool audio stuff they are doing, obviously with the PS5's Tempest engine, and how they are suggesting that you wear headphones when you watch this event, which is pretty cool. So we're going to be talking about all this, and I'm going to be giving my thoughts on it. So if you could do me a big favor before we go any further, make sure you hit the like button to show your excitement for the PS5 event, and make sure you subscribe to the channel as well so you don't miss any future PS5 content here on the channel, as I will be keeping up with all of it and covering it. So I'm going to read the blog post, and then we're going to talk about it. It says, "Hi all. Thanks for being patient and understanding while we rescheduled this PS5 event for Thursday, June 11th at 1 p.m. Pacific Time. We needed to step aside so key voices could be heard during this historic and important time. Now that the event is confirmed for June 11th, I wanted to add that this pre-taped program will be broadcast at 1080p and 30 frames per second. This eased the show's production process during a time when many of our team and developers are working from home. The games you'll see on Thursday will look even better when you play them on PS5 with a 4K TV, as you'd expect. It's also best if you watch while wearing headphones if you can. There's some cool audio work in the show, and it might be harder to appreciate it if it's pumped through your phone or laptop speakers. Anyway, enough talk. An updated version of Jim Ryan's original post follows below. See you Thursday. And obviously we're not going to read the updated original post. We already covered that. But for those who are not aware, basically Jim Ryan in that post was just letting us know what we can expect at this event, which is to see PlayStation 5 games we can look forward to playing at the launch of the PS5 when we finally get our hands on it, which is obviously very... I think that most of us, if not all of us, are very, very happy to learn that Sony is not going to be making us wait much longer.
Listen up. The soap you shower with, it's you probably haven't even questioned what bar of soap you lather up with. Let's face it.
At all to finally see this event. Obviously there was a lot of people who were disappointed that it did get postponed. Some of us were worried that maybe it wasn't going to happen till the very end of June, maybe even the beginning of July, which sounded like somewhat of a painful wait considering it was supposed to happen on June 4th. But we won't have to wait much longer at all. This Thursday is when it's all going down. And obviously, I want to let everybody know right now, I will be streaming this on the channel. And it's probably going to be the longest stream I ever do. We will be streaming before the event kicks off for quite some time, talking about it, hyping it up. We're going to stream the actual event itself. And then we are obviously going to continue to stream once the event ends because I'm probably, as well as most of you, I'm going to have a lot to say about it. Now, the one thing, or a few things I want to highlight in this blog post, but the one thing in particular is that they're letting us know they plan to broadcast it at 1080p 30 frames per second. There are some people who are very concerned about this, and they feel as though it's a big mistake on Sony's part. However, I think most people, if not all people who are planning to watch this show, should be understanding of the fact that the reason why they're doing this is to ease the production process, as they say here. We have to understand that many of the developers, if not all of them, are working from home, and so they're trying to let this be something that happens relatively smoothly as it possibly can. And I guess they had to come to the conclusion that the best way to do that would be to not stream it in 4K. Now, the big question that I'm personally left with, and I want to point out why I'm thinking this, is will we be able to watch the stream itself, like the actual event, in full in 4K once this stream is done? The reason why I say that is because if you notice here, they don't mention anything about being able to watch it in 4K. There's some people who are probably going to bring up, well, they didn't say that about The Last of Us Part 2 State of Play or the Ghost of Tsushima game State of Play. You were able to just watch that gameplay in 4K when it was done. And I think most people are under the assumption we will be able to do the same thing with this event, but there's something we have to understand about this event, is that this is not going to be like a 20-minute highly edited gameplay segment for a single game, right? They're working with a lot of different partners. They're going to have a lot of different things they're showing. And it just seems to me that there is a chance we might not be able to watch this entire thing in 4K when it's done. However, I think it is completely safe to assume that while we may not be able to watch the entirety of the stream itself in 4K, even once the stream is done, the trailers and the gameplay sections that we do see revealed during the stream will come out as separate videos that you can watch in 4K. I mean, at the bare minimum, how could that not be something, right? I am hoping, however, that we will be able to go back and watch the entire stream in 4K. I'm not going to be too upset if we can't, though. Again, it's kind of understandable. Most people don't even have the bandwidth to be able to stream something like this in 4K, let alone 4K 60 FPS. I guess I just hope that we don't see a situation where a bunch of people are throwing a fit, making it sound like these games look terrible and there's no reason to be excited for next generation because they were streaming this event at 1080p 30 frames per second. I talked about this a little bit on the podcast yesterday, and how I feel, and I think most people will agree with me here, maybe not everybody will, but I honestly feel that anybody who's tuning into a live streamed event, especially when they're showing new games and new game reveals, it's not so much about the quality at which it's being streamed. I mean, obviously, the higher the quality, the better. But people, in my opinion, usually walk away from events feeling excited, not based on whether or not they were able to watch it in 4K at 60 frames per second. They walk away feeling excited based off of what was actually announced and what was shown off. I think most rational people with common sense fully understand that if you decide to watch a live streamed event for, that's going to show off gameplay that is supposed to be at native 4K, possibly 4K 60 frames per second, you're just not going to see that. It's not going to look the same as if you were playing it as an already recorded video on YouTube, or especially if you were playing it.
Now that you've seen the Carvana app, any questions?
Hi, Becky here. What if I have a small budget?
No problem. Carvana
playing it on your console. And I just think there's a lot of people who don't really, at least some people who don't fully understand that. And for me, it's more about the weight of the games that are actually announced. I mean, think about a sequel to Horizon Zero Dawn. I think that's safe to say that we may end up getting that at this event. If we get that and we end up seeing it at 1080p 30 frames per second, do we really think that that's going to take away all of the hype and excitement? No, it's not. Especially when the trailer for it, or even the gameplay for it, potentially, is out there on PlayStation's YouTube channel after this stream, and you can watch that in 4K. The hype is not going to be reduced at all. I'm just saying this because I already know that there's going to be some people who are losing their minds thinking that this event is already ruined for some reason because of this, but I think most people are understanding of this fact, and they understand that it's just completely unrealistic to go into any stream, whether that's for Microsoft or Sony, when it comes to them showing off these high-fidelity next-gen games running at higher frame rates, to expect to see that come across over a stream. It's just not realistic. And this is just Sony basically letting you know up front, look, don't expect that. But I have a good feeling that when this event is over, people are absolutely not going to be focusing on the quality of the stream. I think what people are going to be focusing on is how big some of these announcements are. Now, the last thing I want to say in this video before ending it is, again, there's a lot of people, or at least some people I've seen, wondering how hyped should I be for this event. Is it safe to be really hyped for it? Should I get my expectations high? Are there going to be big announcements, or is it going to end up disappointing? Is it going to end up leaving me feeling like I expected a lot more? I don't want to get anybody overly hyped, just like I said the first time around, but based off of what I'm hearing, I think it's safe to say that you can be pretty hyped for this event. I think it's safe to say that there will be some pretty big announcements at this event. There's going to be some pretty big announcements that make some very big waves across the gaming industry that people will be talking about long after the event has ended. And so, I don't want to get anybody's expectations too high. I know it's weird of me to say that after what I just said, but I do think it's safe to be hyped. I'm not sitting here saying that every single announcement Sony's going to have at this event is going to be through the roof massive, like one after the other. There's going to be some smaller ones, but there will certainly be some big ones, and those big ones are going to make some pretty big waves. So prepare yourself. The hype is real right now, and I am extremely excited, guys. As I said, I will be streaming this event on my channel, and I think it's going to end up being the longest stream I ever do here. So I hope to see you guys there. I hope you can come pay me a visit and we can hang out and watch it together and enjoy it. It's going to be a huge time for gamers and especially PlayStation fans, and I absolutely cannot wait. Final thing here is they do mention you want to wear some headphones when you decide to watch this. They're going to have some cool audio stuff that they're doing, so I'll be wearing my headphones. Hopefully you guys will be as well, and I'm going to be interested to see what they do about that. It seems like Sony's not just trying to use this as a way to show off, obviously, how good the games are going to look or how fun the gameplay is, but what they're going to be able to do with that Tempest engine inside of the PlayStation 5. So that's going to do it for the video, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, be sure to leave it a like and let me know your thoughts about this down in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and haven't already. Hit the bell notification icon so you never miss an upload, and feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care. What's up, guys? Or should I say, all right, guys. Welcome to Press X Podcast. Thank you guys for being here, especially those of you who show up early and like to hang out in the chat for a little while. I think today's show, as usual, is going to be pretty good. We have some really solid topics to go over and discuss. It's actually a pretty packed show. Seems like there's just been so much to talk about week over week. So first and foremost, I want to give a shout out to Damocles X. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your username correctly, but you are a new member. Thank you so much for deciding to join the channel and become a member and support me directly, going above and beyond. Thank you so much for that. Look forward to your exclusive perks. So thank you, buddy. And so as you can see, we have the members on screen right now. Thank all of you guys. I want to thank all of you guys for continuing to support me. We also have another member right off the bat here, Scott Huey. Thank you so much, buddy, for going above and beyond. Your names will obviously be added to this list. So next week you can look forward to that. But thank you so much for that. Look forward to your exclusive member perks. And I just want to thank everybody for showing up. As I said, we do have a pretty packed show. There are a lot of really good topics to go over and talk about here. A lot of PlayStation 5 related stuff, but also some PlayStation 4 related stuff. So let me give you a brief rundown over what we're going to be talking about over the course of this podcast. And before I do that, we already have over 500 people watching, which is pretty incredible. So if you could do me a big favor, hit that like button to show your support and help the podcast out. Really means a lot to me. So I see somebody saying, MBG, it doesn't show the join button for me. I've seen some people have that issue. The best workaround I could try to find, I don't know if it's available in every single country to be able to become a member, but I do have a link in the description of this podcast, as well as all of my other videos, that if you click on it, it should bring you to the page directly. So hopefully that helps you out. And thank you for that donation, MH. Really appreciate that. But the topics that we have to discuss today, the first thing we're going to be going over and talking about, and we'll probably continue to talk about this at least until Sony actually comes out and officially gives us a new date, is the PlayStation 5 reveal event. It's something we've been talking about pretty much all year, and we were supposed to have seen this already, but obviously because of all the things that are going on in the world right now, Sony decided it would be best to kind of postpone it. So we're just going to talk about when exactly we think Sony's actually going to come out here and announce a new date. Are they going to announce a new date next week? Are they going to host the event in the third week of June, even though that's the same time The Last of Us Part 2 is releasing? And I just want to have a general discussion surrounding that. But more interestingly, the second topic, in my opinion, it's more interesting anyway, is we're talking about not only what the Epic Games head of engineering had to say about the PlayStation 5 and how they literally had to rewrite code when it comes to Unreal Engine 5 because of the PS5. And when I say had to rewrite it, I don't mean to make it sound like they were forced to. They wanted to. That's how much they like the PlayStation 5. But we also have Linus Tech Tip actually coming out and basically apologizing. I mean, the title of the video was pretty extreme. The title was I've disappointed and embarrassed myself, and I think it's like number 7 on trending right now on YouTube, which is absolutely insane, where he essentially apologized directly to Tim Sweeney because he felt as though he was really off the mark when it comes to the things he's been saying about, you know, just these the PS5 and the comments that Tim Sweeney was making. He just basically felt that he was completely off the mark, and he just came out and basically confirmed that, yeah, not only was he completely wrong, and you could tell there was a lot of shame in his voice, and it was pretty intense, but he was also confirming that what Sony is doing with the PS5 is the real deal. If I could speak, it is the real deal here, and Sony is not messing around. So we also have another channel member, LSSJT. Thank you so much, buddy, for taking the time to go above and beyond and support me directly here. Look forward to your exclusive perks. Really appreciate all of my members. I mean, I appreciate everybody who takes time to interact with my channel, but especially those who go above and beyond. So look forward to those perks. Thank you so much, buddy. But that's the second topic. The third topic we're going over is what we talked about recently, this whole Bloodborne PlayStation 5/PC remaster. What's going on with that? I have a lot more to say about it because, honestly, when I made my video talking about it, I was extremely excited and hyped up about it. But what I've realized is that it seems not everybody actually feels that way. There's a lot of people who are not actually hyped at all about this. In fact, there's a lot of people who seem to, I don't want to say be against it, but they're nervous about it, I guess is the best way to put it. So we're going to talk about that. It's going to make for some very interesting conversation. Let me look at what other topics we have. Jonathan Day, thank you for that donation. You're saying, who else has $1? Well, thank you, buddy. I really do appreciate that donation. But the fourth topic, and this one I think is going to be pretty interesting, but I don't know how much time I'm going to spend talking about it because we always have to worry about spoilers and stuff like that. And when we get to the topic number 4, we're going to be talking about The Last of Us 2, so if you don't want anything potentially spoiled, I would avoid the chat at that point in time. But we're talking about how The Last of Us Part 2, based off of all of the data we have right now and what people are saying, it looks like it might be on track to actually break all of PlayStation's records when it comes to sales and just how impactful it's going to be sales-wise for Sony, which is very interesting and also honestly not that surprising, maybe a little bit surprising given all of the controversy surrounding it. But we're also talking about some things that Neil Druckmann recently had to say about The Last of Us Part 2 in a recent interview he gave to Eurogamer, where he talks about the leaks and how he's basically saying that the ending isn't actually out there. So, you know, nobody should actually know the ending unless you reviewed the game or you're currently reviewing it. He's saying that there's a lot of stuff that's just false. And, you know, he could just be saying this, obviously, to try to convince people to go buy it. But I do find what he's saying pretty interesting. So we're going to talk about that as well. And finally, the last major topic we're going to be going over is Phil Spencer recently coming out and talking about Next Generation and how, in his opinion, it is really difficult to actually show Next Generation, to actually show that leap forward, which I have some thoughts on. There's some things I want to say about that for sure, because I feel like he's maybe making a little bit of an excuse, but there is also certainly some truth to what he's saying as well. So these are all the things we're going to be going over. And of course, at the very end of the podcast, we will be, going over just some general gaming news, and we will be doing a Q&A with the chat here. So we have Jiminator J. You're saying, keep up the great work and content. Part 2 is so close. Well, thank you for that, buddy. I will do my best to keep up everything we've been doing here on the channel. I really enjoy making daily content, and you guys seem to be responding really well to it. You're, really showing a lot of support, so thank you for that. And yes, Part 2 is very close, and I can't lie to you guys. As we get closer to it, my hype is starting to certainly increase, and maybe I'm falling for the PR, I don't know, but when I hear Neil Druckmann coming out and saying that, and not just Neil Druckmann, but people who are reviewing the game as well, they're all saying that the leaks certainly do not tell the full story, and there's a lot more to it, and a lot of them just aren't actually true. It does get me excited. So we also have LSSJT. You're saying, MEG, I thought a thought. But the thought I thought wasn't the thought I thought. Looking forward to the member perks. All right, LSSJT, I don't know what to make of that. It sounds like you might be a little bit confused, but either way, I do appreciate you becoming a member, and I do appreciate your super chat, so thanks for that, buddy. But Yeah, just to really quick before we move on to the first topic, I know that this is a really long-winded intro, and I do apologize, but it's an easy way to let people kind of funnel in. But I want to let all the members know that towards the end of this month, you can look forward to the next episode of MBG and Friends. Although I don't know if I'm going to have multiple friends on this podcast. It could just be me and Brown Sugar once again. But either way, we're going to be talking about The Last of Us Part 2. And as I told you last week, we're going to break it up into 2 separate parts. The first part is going to be us basically just giving our initial thoughts and impressions. The second part will actually be our final thoughts on the game once we complete it. I also do need to let you know, you might hear a motorcycle outside. That's actually my neighbor, so I apologize if that comes through the mic really loudly. There's just simply nothing I can do about it. So, yeah, may as well just wait for that to go. Okay, so we're gonna bring up some gameplay here. Let me move this out of the way. And so, yeah, we have Chris B. You're saying Phil is probably worried that it's hard to show a 2 T-flop difference between the PS5 and Xbox Series X, and he is probably right. That's actually a good one, Chris. I didn't think of that. That could very well be something he has in the back of his mind. There's no doubt about that. And so we'll discuss that when we get to it. It could be, what you're saying could be very true, though. And we also have Tyson Webb 509. You're saying just wanted to drop a few bucks your way. Thanks, buddy. I really appreciate that. I certainly appreciate everybody who is opting to become a member. Those of you who donate super chats, especially at a time like this, really means a lot. But do appreciate everybody. So again, hit that like button. But we are going to move on to the first topic here. And so, the PlayStation 5 event was obviously delayed, and fans are wondering when they can expect it to happen now. I said that I thought, at the very latest, Sony would push it back to early July, but many fans seem to disagree with this and believe that there is no way Sony would wait that long. Many fans seem to believe that Sony will have it either the 2nd or 3rd week of June, but no later. There's also the big fear that things will start to leak out, and there's no doubt that Sony wants to get the show on the road, as fans are very excited. We are also hearing from different people across the industry that this showcase really is going to be big, and Sony has a lot to show. Many seem to believe that this is the showcase/event that will renew people's excitement for next gen. So yeah, we have 1933-8 Luke. You're saying you've been killing it with the PS5 news. Thank you so much for putting out content and keeping us up to date. Well, no problem, buddy. I really do appreciate that you appreciate it. I love making this content, and not only am I just excited myself to talk about it, but it's really nice to see that I have a audience here that is just as excited as I am, seemingly. And I know that some people are getting a little bit tired of all the rumors and speculation, and I understand that completely. And that's why we're having this conversation now, trying to figure out when Sony's going to do this, because it's really hard to tell. Now, I did say that, in my opinion, the absolute longest we would have to wait. I'm not saying this is what I'm anticipating exactly. I'm simply saying that I think it's a possibility that if things, continue to be as intense as they have been, for the past week and a half, I mean, we really don't know. Obviously, Sony doesn't know either. I think if they continue to be as intense as they have been, there is maybe a possibility that Sony may actually put off this event until maybe the 1st week of July. I don't think it would go any later than that, but that's not really what I'm anticipating. And the reason why I'm backing that up is because, as I said, we know that Sony has a lot to show. We also know that they have partners that are going to be showing stuff alongside what they have to show from their first-party and second-party studios. And because of that, you have to imagine that they are all very fearful right now that somebody's going to leak something major out, especially if Sony was planning on actually showing off the console itself. If that's something that they were planning, then right now they are probably trembling in fear, thinking it's just going to be any day now that it leaks. If they weren't planning on showing it off, maybe they feel like they have a little bit more leeway. But either way, something I can tell you for sure is that the longer they go without showing this, and I know I'm repeating what I said in the video, but it's worth repeating because I think it's true. The longer they go without announcing a new date, the more likely big leaks are going to be. I mean, we're hearing about this Bloodborne leak, which we're going to talk about later on, and that's just potentially the first of many things that may leak out. We're actually hearing about Gran Turismo as well. And so, yeah, we have Daniel F. You're saying there is a Karen named Catherine Tetril, who's trying to get Cyberpunk 2077 banned. Google her. She is in a high position and talking to the Prime Minister. That's kind of weird, honestly. I didn't hear anything about that. I'll try to keep that in the back of my mind, so when I'm finished this podcast, I'll have to look into that. But I really hope that doesn't happen. I don't know why Cyberpunk 2077 would have to be banned. It's a video game, and it's artists creating a vision, and if you don't like it or you don't agree with it, just don't support it. I hate to see when stuff like that happens, because it just seems like there are these individuals who have positions of power who are going to go so far out of their way to try to ruin something for a lot of people who are just very excited for something that it's like, I don't even know what to make of that, but that is extremely disappointing to hear. But getting back to the topic, thank you for the super chat, by the way, but getting back to the topic at hand here, it seems likely that Sony is going to talk about this event or announce a new event date at some point next week. And so my thoughts on it were that if Sony were to announce a new event date next week, right, if that's something they were planning on doing or that's when they actually do it, then you have to imagine it would probably be the following week, right? Like, would they announce it? Would they announce a new date if the new date is going to be about 2 weeks away? Sure, they could, but I just don't think it's likely considering how eager people are. But if they were to announce it next week, right, this upcoming week, I should say, if they were to announce it sometime this week and it's scheduled for, say, the 3rd week of June, well, that's when The Last of Us Part 2 comes out. And then my question then becomes, how much breathing room are they going to, do they care about having between The Last of Us Part 2 releasing and giving the PlayStation 5 its time to shine, right? And without, you know, they don't want The Last of Us potentially overshadowing the PS5 event, and they definitely don't want the PS5 event overshadowing the launch of The Last of Us. But you know, that's not, it's hard for me to gauge exactly how much breathing room Sony wants to allow them to have. Maybe they don't care. Maybe they just think both of these things can kind of stand on their own. Jonathan Dayer saying Cyberpunk is intense. I do agree. Everything I've seen of Cyberpunk so far, it does look like a very intense game, but it's a game I'm very excited for, and I think, you know, it's going to be potentially one of maybe the best game we get all generation. I mean, that's obviously subjective, but what I can say is that we are getting a lot of really awesome games before the end of this year, which is obviously awesome, and we're all very excited for that. But I guess I will ask these questions to my chat. When do you think the new event will be? Do you think there's any chance it could get pushed out of June? Like, do you actually think it might end up being sometime in July? And do you think more announcements / reveals will end up leaking out before Sony actually gets to set a new date? I'm interested to see what you guys have to say about this, because I do firmly believe that, you know, the one thing Sony really doesn't want to happen, like the one thing that in my opinion could be worse than them potentially overshadowing the launch of The Last of Us Part 2 by having this PS5 event, say, the 3rd week of June. The only thing that could be worse than that is a bunch of stuff starting to leak out. We have been talking a lot here on the channel about all of these different hints and rumors and leaks and all these things that are circulating about Silent Hill, you know, the next Horizon game, stuff like that. Gran Turismo seemingly being confirmed by somebody who makes a peripheral, right? And I see you guys are kind of blowing up the chat here. A lot of you guys are still saying June. I see some people are saying August. I don't think they would wait that long. But most of you seem to be saying June. A few people are saying July. MH, you're saying no, I wasn't a console. If it has a thick look, I'm cool with that. I have to agree, MH. I don't care what the PlayStation 5 ends up looking like. I just hope it does look very different from the Xbox Series X. Not that I have a problem with the Xbox Series X, but I just think that, you know, it would help the PS5 out. It'd help it stand out, obviously, and also simultaneously allow the Xbox Series X to stand out. I mean, you know, it's one of these situations where Microsoft has clearly done something different with their next-gen console and the way it looks. We're going to have to see how much different the PS5 is going to end up looking, but I don't care if it's a thick console. But, you know, when it comes to this event, guys, I know that there's a lot of people who are getting very impatient. And it's unfortunate that the year Sony and Microsoft are getting ready to reveal their new consoles and talk about them and reveal their new games, it's unfortunate that it happens to be the same year that a lot of really terrible and kind of crazy things are happening globally that no one can really control. And, you know, it's just an unfortunate situation all around. But what I will tell you, and, you know, what does make me feel a little bit better is that, you know, regardless of what's happening in the world, Sony and Microsoft, as long as they don't delay these consoles, which everything they've said so far says that they're absolutely not going to delay these consoles. The good news is they will be revealing this stuff soon. They have no choice. Regardless, it's going to get to a point where regardless of what's going on in the world, you know, it's something that they have to do. And we have OMC Mumbles. You're saying, I hope the Xbox does good. It's good to have good competition. With good competition, the games will win every time. What do you think, MBG? Well, I actually agree 100%. This is actually something I've been advocating for quite some time here in the channel where, you know, I understand that I was really hard on Xbox back in 2019, and part of that was probably just because I was frustrated and, you know, I felt like I was waiting for a long time for something big to happen on the platform, and it just never happened. And then I saw, you know, all the awesome games that PlayStation had released this generation, and I experienced them, and I was like, wow, you know. But the truth is, I do want Sony and Microsoft to have more intense competition this time around. I mean, I know that sometimes it's, you know, it's easy to get riled up in the whole console war thing and be like, look, you know, we love PlayStation, we love what Sony's doing, and so we just want to see them crush the competition. But the truth is, when there is intense competition, if there's good competition between Sony and Microsoft, we will ultimately get better products in the end. And for us, that usually means better games. It also means better services, stuff like that. And so at this point, the number one thing I hope to see from Microsoft, and we'll touch upon this later on in the podcast when we get to the Xbox-related topic, but, you know, I just want to see better games. I want to see games that, you know, genuinely get me more excited than what I've been seeing the past couple of years. And that's, you know, my great hope for Xbox, honestly. But to kind of finish off the first topic here, because I'm eager to move on to the second topic. If I had to give my best guess as to when exactly Sony is going to announce a new date, I think we're going to get the announcement this week. I think it, you know, might not be till Friday, but I think we will get the announcement. And I think it will go down the third week of June. And I think at this point, Sony's just not going to care about The Last of Us Part 2 or the PS5 getting in each other's way. I think that they acknowledge that both of these products are two separate products. They're two separate things. And while they may be geared towards pretty much the same audience, you know, people who are tuning in to hear about how well The Last of Us is selling or reviewing, that doesn't mean they're not going to tune in to see the PlayStation 5 reveal. If anything, it just means they're going to be even more excited about everything happening at one time. At least that's my thought on it. So if I had to guess, I'm going to say we're going to see something the third week of June. It could end up being the last week of June as well. But I do think at this point, if I had to really put my money on it, I'm going to say it's going to happen in June, and it won't actually be pushed back to July. We have we have Scott Huey here first. You're saying, I feel as though PlayStation and Xbox is not going head-to-head any longer. Phil did say they are going for Amazon and Google. Yeah, that's an unfortunate thing. We really don't know. I think Phil just says that to kind of justify how, like, I guess you could say the position they're in when it comes to market share, and to kind of justify how Xbox seemingly has not been able to compete at the same level that Sony, you know, the standard that Sony is setting or has set this generation. But I just don't believe that. I don't understand how Phil could say that after seeing how massive of a flop Google Stadia was, right? It just doesn't make any sense. I do think that they are still in competition. I think that Phil just likes to be very passive-aggressive. We also have Banjo Productions. You're saying, hey, dude, have you heard of the Twisted Metal Black leak on the PS5 subreddit? It might be fan-made, though. I have not heard of that, but it would be interesting to see the return of Twisted Metal. I'm going to be real with you right now. I wouldn't put too much stock into it because at this point in time, there's a lot of people making up a lot of stuff. I've been trying my best to, lately, anytime I talk about any rumors or any leaks, I've been trying my best to only talk about the ones that seem like they have the most amount of credibility, You know, it's been a really long time since we've talked about any 4chan posts or Reddit posts or, you know, reset error posts of people just saying stuff and just basically saying, trust me, bro. I've been trying my best to kind of source individuals who seem to have something. Now, we'll actually touch on this a little bit more when we talk about the Bloodborne leak, because there's some more interesting information surrounding it that I didn't really touch on in my video that we're going to talk about, but it kind of falls in line with not necessarily Twisted Black, but, you know, can we believe random people, right? So, but I have not heard of that. I would not anticipate a Twisted Metal return. However, who knows? It could be a big surprise. We also have 19338 Luke. You're saying if Sony waits till July, most of the games will leak out by then. It's been 4 days, and a lot of rumors about games have already came out. So I think June 16th is the date. You are definitely the idea of things leaking out, just like we talked about a little bit earlier in this podcast. The longer Sony waits, the higher the probability is that something significant will leak out. Is this Bloodborne leak? You know, there's a lot of people who don't believe it. Is that significant? I think so. I'd say it's somewhat significant, not the most significant, but it seems like it's starting small, and as we continue to go on, it will get...
All right, I'm about to get out of here, and what time is it? It's 6. I'm about to go fix something to eat. I got a lot of writing to do. I got some projects coming up I need to write some shit down for. Some webinars and instructional tutorials I have to give. So I need to get busy on that while my food cooks. Yeah, it's hot as shit in here. I'm sweating. Who's off? Oh my god. Who's all getting the PS5? I am. Yo, it's so fucking hot in here right now. Alright, that's off, that's off, that's off. Alright, guys. I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.